Ladies and gentlemen, welcome today to another edition of the NASCAR Fantasy Podcast on the channel where we're going to break down everything that happened in yesterday's NASCAR Cup Series event at Circuit of the Americas, the inaugural race there. It was a rainy, wet day at Circuit of the Americas for those of you that might have watched the race live on Fox Sports 1, or maybe you joined into the chat. We had a lot of people watching yesterday's action on the channel itself as I was doing a live commentary of the race, as I have for numerous Cup, Xfinity, and Truck races so far this season. We decided to do the Cup race this weekend, or I should say I decided to do the Cup race this weekend, with it being one of the more highly anticipated road course races on the schedule, new tracks on the 2021 schedule as well. We'll go stage by stage breakdown of what all happened. We'll get into the juicy stuff. Then afterwards, we'll talk about fantasy, obviously. This is the NASCAR Fantasy Podcast. And then after we talk about the Fantasy League, everything that happened yesterday, anything fantasy, we'll go into our new breakdown of the updated power rankings list that I have brought up for you guys here today. So we'll unravel all of that, and then we'll have NASCAR 05 on the channel for the following stream coming up next. So mini doubleheader here. Kyle Larson, Fan Ashton G, Tyler Burbeck, and Ethan, welcome to the stream. Yes, I'll get to certain questions about the race overall, what I thought of it, and then those obvious questions that COTA needs to come back next year, like Ethan already stated. We'll get into discussions like that afterwards. I want to talk about the race itself first. So in stage number 1 yesterday, there was only one caution for incident in the opening stage. It ended up coming out at lap 9 when Daniel Suarez stalled out on the racetrack. He was having a problem with the shifter. He started at the rear of the field because he had to replace his transmission at the start of the race, replace his transmission earlier in the morning before the start of the race and before qualifying. So he ended up having another issue with the new transmission in the race car. He got stuck in neutral. He stalled out. Push truck brought him back to the garage. He ended up making his way back onto the racetrack and was able to finish ahead of everybody that had DNF'd in the race. He ended up finishing 7 laps down. And obviously, his shots had a great day. We're gone, but he needs every point possible. So a minor victory there for the 99 team, to say the least. It didn't look like they were even going to be able to get back out on the racetrack. Again, that was the only caution for incident stage 1. Pretty much in the opening stage, we had a revolving door of leaders. Looked like Austin Cindric was going to contend, but we noticed the longer into the green flag it went, the more he kind of faded back there. Joey Logano led the most laps at the end of the race. Yes, that's right. For those of you that might not know who led the most laps, Joey Logano actually led the most laps in the race yesterday, leading 14 of the completed 54 laps. And he ended up going on to win stage 1, another stage win on the season for Joey Logano. In fact, that was his third stage win of the season. Just fact-checking real quick there. Third stage win of the season for Joey Logano, so a big playoff point there. Moves him up as well with a great run. Overall, great points day. Stage 1 results looked like this. You had Logano first, Michael McDowell second. He looked very fast early on. Kurt Busch third, Kyle Larson fourth. And Austin Cindric rounded out the top 5. Chris Buescher 6th. Chase Briscoe 7th. Ross Chastain 8th. Kyle Busch 9th. And Matt DiBenedetto, who ended up actually making contact midway through the stage after that lone restart after the first caution of the race. He made contact with the right rear of William Byron. He locked the tires up, maybe hydroplaned a little bit. Slid into the right rear of Byron. Both the left front of DiBenedetto's car had heavy damage. The right rear of Byron had heavy damage. Byron ended up having to pit because of a flat right rear tire there with the tire rub he had. DiBenedetto was able to make it to the end of the stage and sacrifice just that one lone stage point, but he needs all the points he can. So it was a good thing he was able to stay out there because he is the first driver below the cutoff line currently. Into stage number 2. Seeing a lot of you guys talking about the race in the chat again. I'll try to get through everything first, and then I will go back through the chat, see what you guys were talking about. Bear with me here for a second. Stage number 2 is where a lot of the maybe juicier stuff ended up happening. We had that 4-car crash on the backstretch that involved Kevin Harvick, Ryan Blaney, Christopher Bell, Bubba Wallace. That caution looked like it came out at lap number 20. Yeah, lap 20. We don't really know exactly what happened. We have a pretty good idea of what happened. Essentially, Kevin Harvick had checked up due to contact that was made between Ryan Blaney and Christopher Bell earlier. We don't know exactly how that contact ended up coming up to be. What I'd like to think, it might have been the same thing that happened between Matt DiBenedetto and Willie Byron, where Christopher Bell was the car that got into the right rear of Ryan Blaney, because the damage on Blaney's car looked very similar to Byron's. They both had flat right rear tires because of the tire rubs there. I don't know if that was the same corner on the racetrack. I'm not entirely sure from that, but it was off the longest straightaway of the racetrack, which means he was probably carrying a little bit too much speed, ran into him. Harvick ended up getting word from one of his spotters that, hey, they're basically crashing in front of you. So he checked up. When he checked up further back, Bubba Wallace compacted right into the back of him, never slowed down. Again, we never really had a good visual of the contact between the 12 and the 20, nor the contact between the 4 and the 23. The best visual we ended up getting from Fox was the in-car camera of Kevin Harvick, where you could tell that he got hit as hard as what he did. The rear tires came up off the ground. Also, one of the images they showed in-car when Harvick had spun out, he was sitting backwards. There were cars flying past him. Thank goodness he didn't get hit by another car from other drivers in that very fast portion of the racetrack in the rain, where probably nobody could see, because obviously Bubba Wallace couldn't even see Harvick when he had slowed down in front of him as well. That was the first of 2 scary accidents in the race, but again, we just didn't have a great look at exactly what happened. That is about as good as I could have described it right there with the little details we ended up having. Let's see, Dark Crypto, welcome to the stream. Also, R6, welcome on in as well. Just unpacking stage 2 for everybody just tuning in. So that was the first accident of the second stage, and actually the second to last accident of the day. The last accident that we ended up having on the racetrack was probably the worst one I think we have seen this season, and honestly the most fearful accident I think I have seen since Ryan Newman's accident in the 2020 Daytona 500. It was a hard hit between Cole Custer and Martin Truex Jr. Michael McDowell was also involved. For whatever reason, I don't know if McDowell necessarily checked up or Truex just got into the back of him. One way or another, Martin Truex Jr., that same long straightaway, got into the back of Michael McDowell. We did end up seeing that live, and then Cole Custer just piled right into the back of him, didn't slow down at all. It looked like some of the other drivers might have seen what went on, or maybe their spotters were warning them of what went on, because there were other drivers that were behind side-by-side battling for positions that were checking up a lot earlier than what Cole Custer did. Didn't look like Custer checked up at all. He hit Truex so hard that Truex's car almost toppled over, much like Harvick's. The rear tires came off the ground. Looked like the left front came off the ground as well. He was basically on one wheel on that right front fender with Custer underneath him. After that hit, Custer, with the already heavily damaged race car, compacts the inside retaining wall. Luckily, he hit that, I believe it was like either a soft tire wall or a foam wall right in front of the guardrail. Thank goodness he didn't actually hit the guardrail itself. Or that wasn't exposed, because that would have been terrible. There were sections of the racetrack on that straightaway where it was only guardrail and no foam wall, so I think going forward they need to have foam walls at every one of those corners, especially if NASCAR ends up going back, any racing for that matter, going back, because if Custer would have hit one of those walls head on, there would have been a really good chance he would have been seriously hurt after that, but thank goodness he hit that portion of the wall, ricochet back onto the racetrack. With the damage that was already caused from the 19, when he hit that second wall and then the car bursted into a huge, fireball of flame, I thought he was seriously injured. Thank goodness he had gotten out pretty quickly. There were some skepticism of comments I'd seen in either other videos or just online in general that he should have stayed in his car longer and should have waited for the safety crew to come, because he almost got himself killed, because Stenhouse was coming in through trying to get through the wreck, miss the debris and stuff, and he came extremely close to Custer's car, where Custer was in the process of getting out of the car. The car's on fire. The man's got to get out. We don't want a situation which happened to Derek Lancaster at Talladega, where he couldn't get out of the race car in time because he got the wind knocked out of him, and then by the time he had gotten out, obviously he was in the hospital on ventilators for over a week due to him being basically in the fire for as long as what he was. So we don't want instances like that, and the safety crew can only get there so fast, especially with it raining. I'm sure the last thing you want is a safety car to come piling into it too, because it's raining and they hydroplane trying to get on the brakes, going faster than what they should. So anyway, I just wanted to take that into consideration, because I did see that both in the live stream yesterday and comment sections of other videos, and stuff that other of the NASCAR YouTubers came out. So I want to clarify that real quick. As far as the accident itself, it could have been avoided for sure. NASCAR probably should have red flagged after the 4-car accident we had there. And here's what I think they would have done. I honestly feel like after that accident happened, I feel like NASCAR would have red flagged it if they had known the severity of the Harvick, Wallace, Blaney, and Bell accident. Because Fox didn't really have a good angle, nobody really had a really good angle of what happened. Nobody really knew exactly what happened. I feel like, yeah, we saw the damage on the race car look pretty significant on really all 4 race cars. Only one of them was able to keep rolling. Everybody got out of their cars pretty quick. Nobody seemed to be hurt. I think because that happened, they went through, okay, maybe it was just a freak accident. We'll, keep going. Whatever, nobody got hurt, and they pushed the limit too far there. And then when we saw the Custer and Truex accident, saw how bad that was. And that seemed to be a little bit worse. Again, we don't know exactly what happened in the 4-car accident, but it looked very, very bad. That's when they decided to red flag it. So they definitely waited too long, but I just feel like if we would have had a better angle of what happened with the Harvick accident, where his car, it came up off the ground. The rear tires did much like Martin Truex Jr.'s car. It could have looked eerily similar because Bubba Wallace's car was resting against the guardrail by the time he got out of the race car. It could have been the same exact accident. We don't know. And if NASCAR would have saw that, I think they would have threw the red flag there to dry the backstretch off a little bit earlier. We wouldn't have had that Custer and Truex accident. Very scary for sure. If you guys were watching the live stream, my instant reaction, obviously I called it, but I was fearful. I was so glad Cole Custer got out of that car because in the heat of the moment, I thought he could have been seriously injured. Especially, you take a hard hit like that onto the back of Truex, that's one thing. The car did its job there, and the car did its job on the second hit too. But when the car's exposed, and the roll cage, is already kind of caved in from the first hit, and then he hits that second hit with the Armco barrier that was in an awkward angle too. That was one that really could have done him in. That second hit probably might have shaken him up a little bit worse. I feel like, or the reason why he'd be sorer maybe today with that second hit versus the first hit. Simply for that reason. The car was more exposed, so the safety, in the race car itself to keep the drivers safe was more maybe exposed than what it would have been in that first hit to Truex. DRG, welcome to the stream. Running that race was so stupid yesterday, the most dangerous race. Lucky someone didn't get killed. It was dangerous at points. It wasn't exactly like it was definitely downpouring really badly, obviously, at the end of the race, and that's why they ended up throwing the red flag and calling it as what it was during those 2 big accidents we had seen. And that was an instance, again, they should have red flagged it before. As far as just racing in the rain in general, we've seen races in the rain. We have not seen accidents like that, so it can be done. It's just a matter of how heavy the rain is, and that's something that NASCAR needs to manage better going forward if they're going to race in the rain, which it seems like from the presser and everything when Scott Miller was talking that if the situation does come about where it's raining outside, they're on a road course so they have the rain tires available, yeah, they're going to race in the rain still. They just got to manage it a lot better than what they did yesterday because it could still be done. We proved that. There was a lot of great racing. There was a lot of not as risky racing as far as driver safety and stuff goes. Throughout stage one. Stage one was, a perfect example of that where it was raining steadily, but it wasn't raining super hard. So, yeah, hang on, what'd you say there? Yeah, the rain is okay, but the driver said it. These cars aren't meant to race in the rain. Well, the only person I really saw a comment about that was Kevin Harvick, and a lot of that was probably him being heated after getting wrecked and being in that dangerous situation, likely sitting backwards and seeing those cars like hurtling at him that probably couldn't see him for sure. That specific part of the race definitely was the most dangerous we had seen it. And then at the very end of the race, they were in very dangerous conditions again. They just got to manage it better. At the end of the day, NASCAR's just got to manage it better. We've seen other motorsports in the past. Big example, a few years ago, the Rolex 24 at Daytona. They were racing in the rain. It began a torrential downpour. They couldn't see in the mist and stuff. We saw, probably 8 spins before IMSA ended up, red flagging it because the guys were constantly spinning. So And then they red flagged it for a couple hours, and then when it lightened up a little bit, they sent him back out there. It got heavy again, and then they basically called the race. So we basically had that same instance yesterday. It was honestly the same thing. The only difference between that IMSA race and yesterday's NASCAR race is the IMSA race didn't let a huge accident end up taking place. They threw the red flag before something like that took place. NASCAR let it run, and then we saw something like that, and that's where they got lucky for sure. Thought Truex was upset also. Truex, I feel like he was definitely frightened. I mean, you can definitely tell in his interview he was frightened. He was thinking of ways that could have been better, with like the lights and everything. He was trying to... I don't think he was against racing in the rain specifically, because he was trying to think of ways that they could do it going forward to help with the safety. So that tells me that not only he thinks NASCAR is going to do it again, but he also is trying to help and put input into how we can make this better, which I like out of Truex's interview versus Harvick just completely shut it down like immediately. No, I don't want to do it anymore. And, I mean, that's just the personality traits, I feel like, between Truex and Harvick personally. But I feel like that's, just where it comes into. You have to be a reasonable human being. You have to look at both sides of the spectrum. I feel like Harvick was only looking at one side. Truex was looking at both sides. He was looking at the fact that it was dangerous and that he couldn't see, but that he was also trying to think of solutions for the problem too, which I liked out of his interview and his input into it. That is for sure. Kyle Busch, welcome to the stream. Cap24, welcome on in. I love this race. Before we get into my overall thoughts of the race, those are just the quick things. I wanted to touch on that Stage 2, being both those wrecks happen in Stage 2. As far as the Stage 2 results go, that was, again, the last incident we had that brought out a caution. They ended up restarting with, I believe, about 6 laps to go in the stage, and Kyle Busch goes on to win his second stage of the season. Chase Elliott propels all the way up to second. After running primarily outside the top 10 for most of Stage 1, he really fought through there very quickly. Tyler Reddick, who was having a great day, qualified on the pole and was running the first half of the race. He ended up finishing 4th at the end of Stage 2. Corey LaJoie was 5th at the end of Stage 2. He had a great run going until he spun there early on the restart in the final stage. Kyle Larson ends up finishing 6th in the stage. Ryan Preece had another great run there for the first half of the race. He ended up finishing 7th in Stage 2. AJ Allmendinger battled back after losing a lot of track position because of pit strategy at the end of Stage 1. Still fought back to finish 8th in the stage, followed by rookie Chase Briscoe 9th, and Alex Bowman rounded out the top 10 in stage number 2. Final stage of the race, it was all green flag racing until the eventual caution that ended it due to rain. There was a situation where Kyle Busch and Chase Elliott might have pit early. They were scheduled to be about 2 laps short on fuel. Fox broadcast didn't pick up that Chase Elliott was low on fuel. They only picked up that Kyle Busch was short on fuel until well after Kyle Busch pitted. Then I think Chase Elliott might not make it on fuel too. And then they found out, he might not make it. Even though I was stating on my broadcast the whole time that they had pitted at the exact same time, I'm surprised they're not talking about Chase Elliott being short, because I would assume he would be short if Kyle Busch was short. That was exactly what ended up happening. We ended up getting a caution that eventually ended the race due to rain. I don't fault NASCAR for calling the race there. Again, in a similar situation to what we saw earlier, they didn't want to see anybody get hurt. Kurt Busch obviously had that near miss. I don't know how. Save of the year right there for Kurt Busch, splitting it in between Austin Dillon and Kyle Busch, because we could have saw a very bad accident once again there. And literally maybe a lap or two later, NASCAR ended up throwing the red flag. Once they saw there were a couple other spins there on those final laps as well, they knew that was the time to call it, which that was the right call to make. They were trying to wait it out a little bit, according to Scott Miller, after the race was over. He had stated that they were in the process of drying the backstretch. They were going to try to quickly dry it once. If they couldn't get it, dry enough to like they had it earlier in the race when they dried it the first time, then they were going to call the race. The only instance there, I felt like they should have waited out a little bit longer. But I also agree to the fact that there would have only been, by the time they went green, 11 or 12 laps left in the race. Is it worth willing to wait out, say, a 2-hour, heavy torrential downpour rain delay? Because you don't know how long it's going to rain. At that point, it was raining hard for about 20, 30 minutes there in the final stage. Fans were sitting in the rain for hours upon hours upon hours as well. I've heard from people that were there that as fun as the race was, they were glad that they called it because they were sitting in the rain for so long, not just for the Cup race, but the truck race the day before as well. So I think they called the race at a pretty good time. I could see why they called it when they did and not wanting to wait too long. Again, I personally wouldn't have wanted to sit through a 2-hour rain delay even in my warm house, not in the torrential downpouring rain. I wouldn't have wanted to sit around for 2 hours to watch the final 11 laps. So ideally, if there would have been more laps left, like we had seen earlier in the race where they were just short of the halfway mark, they didn't call it then because they wanted to get this race in. I completely agree there. Plus, it didn't. I mean, the red flag was maybe a half hour at the most too. So again, you just don't know. They had daylight left, but it was a 50-50 call, and NASCAR went with probably the safer option, that's for sure. So I can't fault them for that. Tyler Burke, like Kurt Busch almost brought out a caution. Yeah, I mean, he almost, kind of wanted to see it just for. I'd be careful what you wish for there, Tyler, because we could have seen another bad accident because he was coming in there pretty hot. I mean, he couldn't get that car slowed down until he got all the way through the gravel, so he was going in very, very hot. Surprised he was able to get that car out of the gravel, by the way, without stalling it out, which would have brought out a caution if he was just sitting there as well, and then we wouldn't have had another restart. That would have been it. Either way, our running order pretty much would have stayed about the same, at least towards the top half of the field. Kurt Busch near miss was because hydroplane. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the standing water on the racetrack, which there was standing water for most of the day, but obviously when it's raining that hard, it makes it even more difficult. But great car control by Kurt Busch. Again, save of the year. It's going to be tough to beat that save of the season, that's for sure. Unless somebody's able to, do that and, come back to win a race or something, that might be the save of the year then. But, man, that's going to be tough to beat for the save of the season. What do y'all rate the race yesterday? Yeah, so I'll go through the finishing results real quick, being that came to an end. Chase Elliott gets his first win of the season due to that rain-shortened race. Pretty much bailed out. It would have been interesting to see if they went back green, if he was going to be able to save enough fuel under the caution. I don't think that caution necessarily won. It won Chase Elliott the race figuratively. Can't even say that word right now. But anyway, Chase Elliott would have won the race because of that caution, because he did win because of the caution. Would he have lost it if we went back green? Well, they threw the yellow at the right time anyway. Maybe he could have saved enough fuel under the caution during the rain as well. That could have been possible. He needed a caution to help save fuel. Anyway, I'm sure he would have probably stayed out. I don't think he would have pitted at that point in time and restarted 30th, so he would have been risking, trying to go to the end regardless. We just never would have known. Kyle Larson ends up finishing second, so a 1-2 finish for Hendrick Motorsports in back-to-back races. Joey Logano finished third, ran top 10, top 5 most of the day. Great for him. Ross Chastain ran top 10 the whole day. He finishes fourth, first top 5 of the year for Chip Ganassi Racing in that 42 car at least. AJ Allmendinger rounds out the top 5 of the great run. He was back and forth throughout the course of the day. He struggled to keep track position on restarts, and especially at the end of stage 1 with his pit strategy by his team. Very shocked that they did not pit before the end of the stage break. And mainly because they're not running for driver points, but they are running for owner's points at 16, so I guess I agree to a certain extent. With Austin Cindric, on the other hand, that team isn't running for owner's points or for, driver points, so I really don't understand him not pitting at the end of stage 1. He was able to battle back with that track position at the time, but again, on the long run in the final stage, his car really went away, and I don't know what adjustments they made to it, but it definitely couldn't have been the right adjustments for Cindric, because he was top 5 all the way through stage 1 and 2, and he could not hang with those guys at all inside the top 10. He ended up falling back, I think, outside the top 20 by the end of his race. He spun there late. He was one of the spins right before they threw that caution, too. Cindric finished 25th. Yeah, ouch. Sixth place, rookie Chase Briscoe. Great day. Ran back half of the top 10 most of the day. He's a great road course racer. Experience with racing in the rain. Maybe not much of a surprise there is what it might have seemed. I think the only surprise was that it was a Stewart-Haas racing car, and we saw more bad luck with Stewart-Haas racing again today. He was by far the best running driver throughout for that team. Michael McDowell, another top 10 finish of the year, his 5th. All 5 of his top 10s have been 7th place finishes or better as well, so I also want to state that. Also, what I want to state, now that I'm talking about Michael McDowell, Guess how many... he has 5 top 10s because I just spoiled that. Michael McDowell has the same amount of top 10s as Christopher Bell, Austin Dillon, and Brad Keselowski. Let that settle in right now. That's how good of a season Michael McDowell is having. It is not just one race. It's sporadically. Yes, Michael McDowell has the same amount of top 10s as the guy 9th in points, Brad Keselowski, for Penske Racing right now. That 34 team is clicking throughout the course of the season. Don't be surprised if they make a miracle run in the playoffs at maybe the round of 8. If he can survive the round of 16 is going to be the hardest for Michael McDowell because those tracks don't really suit his driving style well. But if we make it to the round of 12, you got Talladega, you got the Charlotte Roval in the round of 12, there's no reason why he can't compete for top 5s in both those races, top 10s for sure, and point his way into the next round. If he gets through the round of 16, I think I got Michael McDowell going to the round of 8, to be quite honest. They keep this rolling. Hopefully they can maybe get more playoff points this year. They could sneak a second win away. We still got 4 more road course races before the playoffs yet. We'll have to wait and see, everybody. We'll have to wait and see. Finishing 8th place in yesterday's race was, I'm hitting the wrong page, Alex Bowman. Bowman ran pretty well for most of the day. Again, he was hovering right around the 8th to 12th range the whole race. Ended up with the top 10. Tyler Reddick finished 9th. Great rally. Spun there, I believe, late in stage 2. Actually, midway through stage 2, right before that last caution, or those 2 big accidents that we ended up having in stage 2. He had spun somewhere in that area of the race and rallied back to get inside the top 10 again. He finished top 5 at the end of one of the stages as well. Qualified on the pole. He had a fast car, and great run for Tyler Reddick, who's not really known as racing well in the road courses. And Kyle Busch finishes 10th. He was my pick to win yesterday's race. It was between him and Elliott, and I had Elliott all week until a couple hours before the race. I was like, you know what, I'm going to go Kyle Busch because he dominated the Xfinity race. If I would have known it would have rained from start to finish like this, I probably would have went with Chase Elliott still because of the road course prowess that he's got versus Kyle Busch. Because the Xfinity race had dry conditions throughout, so it was a completely different race, so practice maybe didn't mean as much there with the Xfinity cars as what I thought it was going to be. That's my fault for that, and now I'm 0 for 14 in trying to predict the winners so far this season. My goodness. Oh, wow. Wow, indeed, yeah. Again, Michael McDowell has the same amount of top 10s as Austin Dillon, Brad Keselowski, and Christopher Bell this season. And he's not far behind Bell in points. He is very close to him. He's, Keselowski's top 10, and McDowell's still 16th in points. McDowell had a great points day yesterday, but a lot of guys like Reddick around him in the regular season standings had a great day. Matt Benedetto had a stage point and finished somewhat well after a pretty damaged race car. So, yeah, but, I mean, if the playoffs started today, he would be in on points even without that win still. He's had a consistent season. He's also had either the same amount of top 5s or more top 5s than Tyler Reddick, Christopher Bell, Austin Dillon, Ryan Blaney. He's got the same amount of top 5s as Ryan Blaney. And Blaney is 7th in points. He's had great runs this year, guys. Don't sleep on Michael McDowell. Okay, so we're done talking about the race itself. We'll get into fantasy talk right now. This is the NASCAR Fantasy Podcast, after all. We'll go through the drivers that I had on my fantasy team for the race this weekend, and we'll also go through my picks that were the must-haves, the sleeper picks, and the don't-haves that we had in the pre-race yesterday for the pre-race edition of the Fantasy Podcast as well. So we'll go through the running over first and foremost. The must-haves I pretty much hit. Chase Elliott won the race. He was an absolute must-have. Kyle Busch was a must-have. I felt like on everybody's fantasy team I picked to win the race. He ran top 3 the whole day. Pit strategy left him out. Why? I mean, if he could have just made it 2 more laps on fuel, or if he would have just not pitted early that last time, he would have finished 3rd also. So he basically had a top 3 in the bag. Pit strategy cost him. Not Kyle Busch's fault whatsoever, but still top 10 run, a lot of stage points. Won a stage as well. He was definitely a good start. And William Byron was the last guy. Just missed the top 10. Finished 11th. The streak of 11 straight top 10s come to an end for William Byron, and it's by 1 position. And that's after a rally from stage 1 which I remember mentioned that Matt DiBenedetto slid into William Byron, locked the brakes up, maybe hydroplaned a little bit, into the right rear, heavy damage, flat tire. Byron's crew, great resilient effort to not only get that car back in the race, keep it on the racetrack. Same with Blaney as well, but Byron had a better finish than Blaney. And the fact that he still almost got a top 10 after all that, with only literally 2 more cautions after that accident, that was just insane. And I'm sure they were working on the car every time they had a chance from that point on. Chase could get 3 wins. COTA, Coke 600. Yeah, I mean, he could win 3 in a row. It's very well possible. It is very well possible. So those are the must-haves. The sleeper picks yesterday, AJ Allmendinger, Austin Cindric. They were both on my fantasy team as well. Allmendinger, top 10 in both stages. End up finishing 5th at the end of the race, top 5. Great start there. I said he'd get a top 10 and did. So I said that Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott would compete for wins. They pretty much did. I'd say they did. Strategy failed Kyle Busch. Strategy won Chase Elliott the race, and they were basically on the same strategy. So that definitely was the case there, and I said William Byron would keep his top 10 streak alive. I was wrong by 1 position. Oh, sorry, I was so close. I was so close, though. It was still good advice. Byron had a better day for sure than what I think people could have thought, what I thought after the damage he ensued. I said AJ Allmendinger was going to get a top 10 again. He finished 5th, got a top 5, so definitely ran well, as I mentioned. And I did say Austin Cindric would get a top 10 run, and he ran top 5 the first 2 stages, top 5 in both stages, but ended up falling back there late. He led, I believe, 12 laps in the race, so the second most laps led as well for Cindric, but the finishing position was where I was way wrong with that. He spun late. Even if he didn't spin late, I don't think he would have had a top 10. He was probably running about 12, 13, so I still would have been wrong either way. I just wasn't wrong by much, that's all. So that, and then the don't haves. This is where I really hit. The guys that I said would run bad throughout the course of the race and will not finish inside the top 10, I said Denny Hamlin wouldn't. Hamlin didn't get any stage points in stage 1. No stage points in stage 2. Finished 14th. He spun, I believe, at least once, maybe twice throughout the course of the race. So I was right on Denny Hamlin. The guy's leading points by a ton right now, and I said that he would not finish in the top 10, and he did not. I figured he'd struggle. That team did not unload fast at all. They were slow in practice, qualified outside the top 15. I said he just does not look good. I felt the rain was going to play against him, too, with no rain racing experience as well. So Denny Hamlin definitely faltered as I thought he would. Brad Keselowski, another guy. That team has just been struggling. They've only had 2 top 10s in the last 7 races now, 2 out of 6 going in. That included a win in a top 5 in back-to-back weeks at Talladega and then Kansas. But he also unloaded very slow. Keselowski also is not good on road courses. Yes, I know he has won at Watkins Glen before in the past, but outside of Watkins Glen, he is terrible at Sonoma. He's been terrible at the Charlotte Roval since they implemented it. I don't think he's gotten a top 10 yet there. The Daytona road course, he was terrible in both races, somehow rallied to get a top 5, but a lot of those were the super late race restarts after the caution for the rainbow on the backstretch. So if it wasn't for that, I don't think Keselowski would have had a top 10 in that race either. I expected him to run bad. No stage points in either one of the 2 stages and finish 19th. And the last guy I had as a don't have as well, which I'm trying to find on the leaderboard. Let's see here. Who else did I have? Chat might need to help me out on this. Hang on, I have it in my notes somewhere. Where are my notes at? I don't know why I can't remember who the... Oh, Austin Dillon. Yeah, Austin Dillon has 0 career top 10s and 15 career road course races. I said that would continue. He'd go 0 for 16. It looked like for a minute there, he was running back half of the top 10, like he was going to break it. And then in the finishing results, I don't believe he did. 12th. I was right. And he didn't get any stage points in stage 1 or stage 2 as well. Finished 12th. Not the greatest points day. So I nailed the hammer on the head right there with pretty much every pick. Outside of Byron missing by 1 spot on the top 10, I was wrong there by 1 position. And Austin Cindric, I said he would get a top 10. He led a lot of laps in the race. He finished top 5 in both stages. So still a good points day if you had him in fantasy, which I did. And I was thrilled to have Austin Cindric on my team, quite honestly. It was only the only time I've had him on the year this year. I only plan on using him for road courses, so why not? And he did not disappoint. So in a sense, I was right, but I did say he'd get a top 10, and he did not get the finishing position he did deserve. Stewart-Haas was rough. Yeah, they've been rough all season, that is for sure. Credit where credit's due. Ross Chastain P4, indeed, and he drove the wheels off that thing all day. I mean, he was on edge all day long. For being in the rain on a new road course, being on edge is just, I mean, everybody was on edge, but he was even on more edge, but he was wheeling that race car to as good of a finish as he could, and he led some laps along the way as well. Yeah, the best finish on a road course in his career is still pretty good. Oh, Austin Dillon, yeah, I don't think he had a single top 15 up until then, but he did not score stage points at all in the race. So, and he did run top 10 a little bit there towards the end, but I think he was on a different pit strategy. I think he was one of the first guys at pit with Kyle Busch and Chase Elliott, so that was helping him there for a little bit. For a moment, I was thinking he didn't pit at all yet. That wasn't the case. So I don't know if he would have made it on field to the end either, and he was a 12th, so he could have very well finished outside the top 20 if he would have had to pit again to the end of the race. So I guess the caution kind of helped him at the rain shortened race, I should say. That portion of it definitely kind of helped him. But I would say I was right on the predictions. He didn't get any stage points, and he finished outside the top 10. I said he was going to stay outside the top 10. So, hey, if you're happy about a 12th place finish as an Austin Dillon fan on a road course, which I guess I would kind of be too if I was an Austin Dillon fan, it still didn't exceed the it didn't exceed any of my expectations I had for him. He was pretty much right at my expectations, which were not good expectations. So I'd say I was pretty good on the call there. As far as my fantasy team went, I had Joey Logano, Austin Cindric, Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, and AJ Allmendinger. So let's see. Logano, top 5. Kyle Busch, top 10. Chase Elliott, win. AJ Allmendinger, top 5. All 4 of those guys had a lot of stage points. Austin Cindric had a lot of stage points as well. He was the 5th guy on my team. Byron outscored him by 1 despite not having any stage points because Byron rallied to finish 11th versus Cindric finished 25th. But considering I'm probably going to use Byron a lot more this year, and I still have 6 more usages out of him, which is good. Cindric, I'm not going to use a lot more this year, if any at all. It just depends. It's a week-to-week basis on what races Cindric's running. If he runs more road courses, I'd put him in the lineup. I think you guys should too, but outside of that, I wouldn't put him in any of the races. Just unknown. He's only had 5 career starts. So that literally wraps up everything I have to talk about with COTA and the race in general, the fantasy that goes along with it. Now it's time for the finishing portion of the podcast that we do every week on the post-race analysis. It is my personal power rankings. My top 10 specifically in a specific order of drivers to compete for the championship. It is an eye test of drivers that are going through right now. Do I think all 10 of these drivers have a reasonable shot of winning the championship? Maybe not, but these are, in that specific order, 10 drivers that I think are the best so far this season. And usually we start off with the bottom, so we're going to start off at the bottom again. I'll talk about the final couple guys on the list, the 9th and 10th guy on the list, because they were the last 2 on, and they were the 2 I debated, which should be ahead of the other in 9th and 10th. And then the next 4 ahead of them were kind of a tier ahead of them. So we'll talk about the 9th and 10th place driver in the power rankings, how they fared yesterday, how far they dropped from the week before. And, we'll have some fun with this. I want to see you guys down in the chat as well as I'm going through every one of these guys. What do you think of my power rankings as we go through it? And again, I am up for debate if you guys don't think it's right. I will try to prove my case, but I will listen to the chat as well, and we'll see if you might persuade me to maybe making a change there. Starting off with number 10, I have my guy Ryan Blaney. Blaney has slid pretty far back. Remember, I had him in 4th on the power rankings list, not after he won at Atlanta, but I believe it was 2 or 3 races after Atlanta. He had a streak of 7 straight finishes that were 11th or better. That was where I had him at 4th. At the time, Larson had a couple really bad runs in a row. Keselowski at that point in the year was really starting to fall off, and I felt Blaney at that time was that 4th best guy. He would have been my 4th guy in the championship 4. Since then, William Byron has taken off. Larson has gotten back on track. Logano, his teammate, has been performing a lot better than him, and Keselowski. Logano's A little spoiler alert, I guess. Logano is ahead of any other Penske driver on this list, and Ryan Blaney is going to come in at number 10. He's currently 7th in points. He's got 6 top 10s, 2 top 5s, a win, 3 stage wins on the year, so that's a pretty healthy dose there too. He does have those stage wins. Every point matters as far as the playoff points go. And I have Ryan Blaney at number 10. Do you guys think Ryan Blaney at number 10 is fair? I had to keep him on the list still because his statistics compared to guys that kept off the list, which I'll get in a little bit. I'll talk about the next guy, and then I'll talk about why I had these 9th and 10th guys on the list versus other drivers on the list. Coming in at number 9 is Alex Bowman. Literally the only reason I have Bowman at 9 and Blaney at 10 instead of Blaney at 9 and Bowman at 10 is because Bowman's got 2 wins versus Blaney's 1. That is simply the only reason I have him above. Ryan Blaney is 5 spots in points ahead of Alex Bowman. He has a 98-point lead, I did my math wrong, 96. So Blaney is 96 points in the regular season standings ahead of Bowman. Blaney's been far more consistent than Bowman this year. Again, the only reason I have Bowman ahead is because he has that extra win, so more playoff points going. Actually, I think Blaney's got more playoff points anyway because Bowman hasn't won a stage this season. Yeah, so and the regular season points too. So yeah, I guess Blaney has more playoff points, but I'm still going to have Bowman. That extra win just shows that when they're in position, they can get the job done. Blaney probably should have won Martinsville, but that pit crew. Plus, Bowman's got the best pit crew, too. This is like the 48 team as a whole, I feel, is better than the 12, even though Blaney's been performing a lot better than what Bowman's been performing so far this year as a whole. Bowman's got 2 wins in the last 6 races. Blaney's got 1 in the last 7. So, yeah. Alex Bowman comes in at number 9. Number 9, Alex Bowman. And then number 10 would be Ryan Blaney. The guys I kept off the list that were below those drivers. Let me pull up. Okay, Christopher Bell. Bell is 14th in points. He's really slid back. He's only got 5 top 10s so far this year. That is 1 less than Bowman, and it is 1 less than Blaney. The fact that Blaney is 7 spots ahead of Bell in points, I couldn't put Bell ahead of Blaney, and he's only 2 spots behind Bowman, but because I had Bowman at 9, again, Bell had to stay just off the list this week. Michael McDowell is trending forward once again. I'd have him probably around that 11th, 12th, 13th slot. Same with Austin Dillon. I think I'd throw Dillon probably 11th right now, and then I'd have Bell 12th, McDowell 13th. Those are the 3 guys that I just had missed. I mentioned Michael McDowell has more success in recent races. 5 top 10s on the year as well. 2 top 5s and a win. Obviously, the win coming in the Daytona 500. Plus, McDowell's trending forward because of how great of a day he had yesterday. We have 4 more road courses before the playoffs. 5 total left on the season still. He's got a great shot to maybe even get 10 top 10s this year. A couple more super speedways left. There's a reasonable shot that Michael McDowell could have double-digit top 10s by the end of the season, which would just be stellar. I think he only had 2 all of last year. So that is just awesome for that 34 team. I wish them the best of luck going forward. That's for sure. Michael McDowell is an underdog, I feel like, in my heart as well as everybody else's. So, in the chat below, comment, do you think that's fair? Also, Brad Keselowski is off the list. Keselowski, I kind of mentioned. Michael McDowell literally has the same amount of top 10s as him. They both have 1 win. More stage wins for Brad Keselowski. He's got 1 versus McDowell having 0, so it's not much. And Keselowski's 9th in points versus McDowell is 16th. They both have the same amount of top 10s in the last 7 races, too. Keselowski's team is fading right now. Bad. All 5 of those top 10s are top 5s for Keselowski. So I guess him and McDowell would be like interchangeable, I feel like, for 13th. But remember, this is kind of a consistency basis over recent races, too. And Brad Keselowski and that crew, they have just not, they have been looking very, very bad. Let's take a look at Brad Keselowski's finishes in recent races as well. And I've been telling you guys, when Keselowski's been dropping, and he wasn't on the power rankings list last week either. He's off of it with another bad run this week. Keselowski. This goes back to Atlanta. So Keselowski had, let's see. Keselowski had 3 of his 5 top 5s in the first 5 races of the season. That's when we consider Keselowski to be, at that time, one of the best drivers without a win, probably the best driver without a win up to that point in the season. Since that race at Phoenix, Atlanta 28th, Bristol Dirt 11th, 33rd at Martinsville, 14th at Richmond. Then he got that win at Talladega. Kansas, he finished 3rd, and he was moving back up on the leaderboard. I think I had him 5th or 6th in power rankings the 3 races since then. 24th at Darlington, 16th at Dover, 19th at COTA. So 2 top 10s in more than 7 races. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 2 top 10s in the last 9 races for Brad Keselowski. I think it's alarming. As far as championship hopes go, that 2 team needs to turn it around quick. And that might be another reason why maybe the negotiations aren't going as well with Penske and Brad Keselowski right now. I know the news came out earlier in the week that it looks like Keselowski might be heading to Roush as a part-time owner as well for that team and have a high stake of role in that organization. I think that's more and more possible as Keselowski is not performing as well this year. And some of it has been the pit strategy, too, because remember, at Richmond, they had a terrible pit strategy, which took him out of a top 10 run there. So it's not like it's all Brad Keselowski, but my goodness, 2 top 10s in the last 9 races, that's just terrible. I know he had a win at Talladega in that stretch. The only lap he led in that Talladega race was the last lap, so it wasn't a dominating win by any means either. I don't know. I'm fearing for Brad Keselowski right now. He's obviously got that win. He's going to be in the playoffs, but I mean, he could be around a 16 exit the way this is going so far this season. You look at Michael McDowell's season, especially recently. Austin Dillon, another guy who performed well on those same 3 tracks last year in the round of 16. I mean, you're talking about, those guys easily being ahead of Keselowski. Who is Keselowski going to finish ahead of? Reddick is clicking on all cylinders, and he's in on points right now. He's got 7 top 10s. He's got 2 more top 10s than Keselowski. I'm telling you, Brad Keselowski's struggling bad. So those are the guys that just missed out on the list. Again, we have Blaney 10th. 9th is Alex Bowman. Coming in at number 8 on the power rankings list is the wrong list. Hang on. Oh, where is it? Okay, I lost it for a second. We got it back. Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch is coming in at number 8 on the list. This was tough. I'm going to make a change. We're going to have Kevin Harvick at number 8 and Kyle Busch at number 7. Let me change that out real quick. I think that's a little bit better. But that one win that Kyle Busch has to put him above Kevin Harvick. Okay, so we got Kevin Harvick at number 8, Kyle Busch at number 7. Just made the change there. I think that was the right call. Harvick made by top 10. Yeah, I have Harvick at number 8. Harvick's had a great season. I know he hasn't won yet, but he's had a great season. He's also had a lot of great runs. Obviously, that DNF at COTA yesterday was not one of those great runs, but before COTA, I think he had 4 straight finishes of 7th or better, including a couple top 5s in there. Harvick's season stats compared to Kyle Busch. Harvick is 2 spots ahead of Kyle Busch in points right now. He's got 2 more top 10s than Kyle Busch. They both have 4 top 5s. Again, the only reason I have Kyle Busch ahead of Harvick, last second change, is because Kyle Busch has 1 win. Harvick doesn't have any wins right now, so Harvick is not secured in the playoffs. Kyle Busch is. But their stats are very, very similar, and Harvick trumps him in probably 3 of the 4 major categories in stats. The only one he doesn't beat him in or tie him is the wins. Kyle Busch also has 2 stage wins versus Kevin Harvick has none. So I guess it's 3 versus 2 in the categories, the major categories, Harvick, but that win values a lot more than Harvick 0. So do you guys agree? Do you guys in the chat agree? Last time Harvick DNF was 2019 Bristol. I know, Bristol August race. I mean, that's just insane. Kevin Harvick's stat, and this is why it was close between Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick. Here's Kyle Busch's stats in recent races. Top 10 at COTA, 10th there. 27th at Dover. They had issues. I'm still not sure exactly what the issue was. He was down a cylinder or something there early. They got it fixed, but it was not Kyle Busch's fault. And then he had a third-place finish and a win at Kansas. And that win at Kansas, and then the third at Darlington, I said Kyle Busch is back. How well he ran at Richmond a couple races before that, too. He finished 8th, but he was running top 3 the whole time. Again, pit strategy. It was a speeding penalty that costed Kyle Busch that day. But yeah, I mean, if they don't make those mistakes on pit road or anything, he is back. That is for sure. But there's that, and then Kevin Harvick's stats in recent races. That's why originally I had Harvick ahead, but again, the only reason I'm putting Kyle Busch ahead of him is because of that win. They're very much interchangeable. I literally just changed it at the last second. Kevin Harvick's stats in recent races. Obviously, 37th yesterday at COTA. That wasn't a good run. But the 4 races before that, 6th at Dover, 6th at Darlington, 2nd at Kansas, and 4th at Talladega. That's why I had him ahead of Kyle Busch, because he's got 4 top 6s in the last 5 races, where Kyle Busch only has 3 top 10s in the last 5 races. But that win at Kansas, the only thing that puts Kyle Busch ahead of Harvick. Yes, I agree with Harvick at 8. And then I guess if you want to get in the argument, I can't put Kyle Busch any much further ahead than Harvick than that, because they were that close. And the driver that jumps up in the standings 3 spots, I had him at number 9 last week. Chase Elliott moves up to number 6. Joey Logano at number 5. So that was kind of the next battle, was between Logano and Elliott. And I think that they're easily both ahead of Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick. As far as statistics go, the statistical categories, Busch and Harvick actually beat both of those drivers, but they're running far better in points throughout the course of the race. Chase Elliott is 5th in points. Joey Logano is 4th. They both have 8 top 10s. They both have 6 top 5s. They both have 1 win. The only reason Logano is ahead of Elliott is because he's 1 spot ahead of him in points. Plus, Logano has 3 stage wins. Chase Elliott has 1. So if the playoffs started today, Logano would have 3 more playoff points than Chase Elliott. And, I mean, again, their stats. We want to talk about Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch's stats being nearly similar. Logano and Elliott have almost identical stats. Same amount of top 10, same amount of top 5s, same amount of wins with 1. Logano has also led a lot more laps than Chase Elliott this season, too. I guess that's another big statistical category. Joey Logano's led 338 laps, and Chase Elliott's only led 81. So that's an alarming difference right there. So Joey Logano comes in at number 5, Chase Elliott at number 6, and both ahead of Harvick and Busch. They both have the same amount of top 10s as Busch, too. But they have 2 more top 5s. And more recent success as well than Kyle Busch. Again, we mentioned Busch only has 3 top 10s in the last 5 races. Chase Elliott's last 4 races, 1st, 3rd, 7th, and 5th. Joey Logano, not as good as that. I definitely say that Chase Elliott's on the rise, but Logano did finish 3rd yesterday. Another great run. Another reason I guess you could put him ahead is because he was right there with Chase as far as finishing positions go. Joey Logano's stats in recent races would be 3rd yesterday at COTA, as I just mentioned. 5th at Dover the week before that. 13th, 17th, 39th. But then before that, 3rd, 6th, 1st. So, yeah, it is close. Elliott's been better in recent races, which I can see that argument if you want to put Elliott ahead of Logano, because in the last 5 races, Elliott has been far better than Joey. But considering, season stats as a whole is the only thing that puts Logano ahead of Elliott right now. And the fact he's ahead of him in points by 1 spot still. 4th versus 5th. So, yeah, down in the chat. Does that seem right? Imagine Austin Dillon have similar stats to Keselowski. That's extremely alarming. Yeah. Considering that Austin Dillon is in RCR equipment and Brad Keselowski's with Penske, that is definitely alarming. But that just goes to show how good Austin Dillon is. Dillon's only like 2 spots behind him in points, too. Dillon is 11th. Keselowski's 9th. I want to see exactly how many points separate the two of them. Because Austin Dillon scored more yesterday than Keselowski also. Okay, so there's a big gap in points still. Austin Dillon, Keselowski, and Kyle Busch are actually tied for 9th. The only reason Keselowski has the tiebreaker is average finish is better than Kyle Busch. Because they both have 1 win. And then Austin Dillon would be 56 points back behind both of them. So that's a pretty big difference there. But yeah, they have pretty much... And Keselowski's got 4 more top 5s. But he's got the same amount of top 10s. So that's kind of the difference between them. But again, considering Austin Dillon's equipment versus Keselowski's equipment, Keselowski's definitely having an off year. I think that stretch of winning 3 to 4 races a season might come to an end this year, the way Keselowski's team's been performing. And considering their only win was the last lap pass at Talladega, and that was the only lap he led that whole race. Honestly, statistically, I think Austin Dillon's having the best season of his career, even if he doesn't have a win. I'd say so, too. Because even with the wins that Dillon's had in recent years, he's been like 16th to 20th in points. This year he's 11th. Huge step up. I mean, they ended strong last year, and they're picking up right where they left off as a top 10 team for sure. Who's the best at Hendrick? Who's the best Hendrick driver this year? I think you can make a case for all of them. That is very well true. Jason Games also welcome to the stream. Good question. We'll lead into that question by stating who's 3rd and 4th on the list. These are the top 2 Hendrick drivers, in my opinion, so far this season. And these are the only 2 Hendrick drivers where if the championship 4 started today, these 2 Hendrick drivers would be in the championship 4. I got William Byron at number 4 on the list. Kyle Larson at number 3. The week before, I had Byron 3rd and Larson 4th. Larson moves ahead with another great run, 2nd place finish. Byron just finished outside the top 10. That's the only reason I have Larson ahead of Byron so far this season. Larson's led far more laps than William Byron so far this season, too. What was that, the 5th? 2nd place finish for Larson this season? 4th or 5th? I thought they said 5th. It might have been his 4th. But even still, I mean, even though he's only got 1 win, and if he'd have more wins, I mean, Larson would be contending right there with the top 2 in my power rankings list. But that's the only thing holding him back is that he's failing to seal the deal. I'd say Larson... I wouldn't say Larson himself as a driver would be the best Hendrick driver, but because your question says the best, it does say best Hendrick driver. Okay, I'd say William Byron's been the best Hendrick driver so far this season, but I feel like as an actual race team, considering that Larson's had far more speed in every race compared to the other Hendrick drivers so far. Larson greater than Byron by far. Extremely good. I wouldn't say by far. We'll go through the statistics real quick here. Larson's led a lot more laps. Larson's actually led the most laps so far this season. Let's see. William Byron has led 171 laps this season. Not bad at all. That actually puts Byron at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So Byron has led the 7th most laps this season of any driver. He's 2nd in points. Kyle Larson's 3rd in points. So statistically there, Byron ahead of Larson. They both have 1 win. They're equal there. Larson has 7 top 5s versus William Byron has 5. So Larson would tie 1-1. And then it'd be 2-1 because Byron has... 2-1 because Byron has 11 top 10s. Larson's got 9. 6 stage wins for Kyle Larson versus 1 stage win for William Byron. Now you're talking 2-2, almost 3-3 because they tied in 2 categories. That's how close it is between the 2 of them. Laps led, that seals the deal. Again, 171 for Byron. Larson's led the most laps of any driver this season by a close margin to Denny Hamlin, but he's led the most this year with 778 laps led in the first 14 races. Almost like 3/4 of a way to 1,000 already. So I wouldn't say Larson by far has had a better season than Byron. It is very close. And the stats, I mean, just go to show it. I just think we give Larson more credit than Byron because we know how good of a driver Kyle Larson is. But considering that he's had far more speed than Byron, but Byron is wheeling that race car around there too, and he's getting more consistent finishes than Kyle Larson. That's why he's ahead of him in points. It's close in points too. I mean, Byron's only 12 points ahead of Larson, but Byron's second in points still. 14 races in. Good for him. Good for Willie B. Great to see him running well. Especially considering that he's probably underperformed the last few seasons. First few seasons of his career. Man, we're running long on this episode today, aren't we? What time we start this? 5:40. Yeah, it's already been an hour. Usually we top it off at an hour. We're still talking about the power rankings. All right. Well, hey, bonus for you guys. We're talking everything NASCAR right here. I love to talk NASCAR. I don't get the chance to talk NASCAR too often with people that actually know the sports. It's great to, communicate with you guys down in the chat. I'd like to bring guests and other NASCAR YouTubers on the channel at some point in time. Obviously, they're a lot higher up in the YouTube category than what I am, so it'd be pretty hard to do that. But I'd like to do that. I feel like it'd be a lot more fun for you guys instead of just hearing me talk for an hour. But I'm glad you guys are enjoying again. As far as those guys go, that's pretty much all I have to say with Larson and Byron. Again, Larson 3, Byron number 4. And then coming in at 1 and 2, as you can expect, would be Denny Hamlin at number 1 and Martin Truex Jr. Sorry, I said that wrong. Denny Hamlin at number 2, Martin Truex Jr. at number 1 still. Truex is fading. I almost put Hamlin at number 1 once again, but 3 wins to none. Truex has to go ahead of Hamlin. That is the only reason I have Martin Truex Jr. at number 1 and Hamlin at number 2 is because Truex has 3 wins. Hamlin does not have any. Hamlin still leads the regular season point standings by over a race and a half worth of points. He's got a 98-point lead over Willie B. He's got more top 10s than Martin Truex Jr. by 2. Truex has 8 top 10s versus Hamlin's got 10 top 10s, which is still tied for the second most there. Denny Hamlin still has the most top 5s on the season this year. He's got 9 versus Truex has 5. Again, 3 wins for Truex. A lot further up in points is Hamlin. Truex actually falls back to 6th in points. Remember, he was 2nd just 3 races ago, but he's really faded. And honestly, another finish outside the top 10 next week for Martin Truex Jr. if Hamlin has another great run when we go to Charlotte for the Coke 600. I think Denny Hamlin has to move back to number 1 once again just because of the consistent speed that team's had versus the 19 this year. As far as recent races go, the last 5 races for Truex, 35th at COTA, 19th at Dover, 1st at Darlington, 6th at Kansas, 31st at Talladega. So he's got 3 finishes of 19th or worse in the last 5 races. Denny Hamlin in the last 5 races. Let's go back to the wrong screen when I have to flip driver profiles here. Denny Hamlin in the last 5 races so far this season, a little bit better than Truex outside of the fact he doesn't have a win. 14th at COTA yesterday, outside top 10, but still better than Truex by a considerable bit. Dover finished 7th, better. 5th at Darlington, had a great run, but obviously Truex won that day. 12th at Kansas, 32nd at Dega. So their stats are pretty similar there, I guess. Hamlin does beat him, for sure. He's got at least 4 top 15s. Truex has 3 finishes of 19th or worse in that same amount of races. But, I mean, if you look at even before Talladega for Denny Hamlin, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 3rd, 4th, 11th, 3rd, 5th. It is just insane what that team has done. Man, oh man, oh man. Jackson Thomas, welcome on into the stream here very late. Fantasy results from yesterday. Decided by 1 point. I guess I didn't talk about that with the fantasy. I talked about it at the end of the live stream yesterday after COTA, I guess, so maybe that's why I didn't touch on it. So yeah, I mean, that wraps up the NASCAR Fantasy Podcast for the most part. We'll look at the points so far overall in the league. As far as the points yesterday, very tight. Tyler Burbeck, you were number 1 with 221 points, scored by 1 point over P-Shat Motorsports. Super B-Man 1, that's Tim Irvin in the chat. He was only 10 points behind the number one spot. Only 11 points behind the number one spot was fourth place. Ethan, he was in the chat a little bit earlier as well. And then I was only 19 points back. So, yeah, the top five all within 19 points. It was definitely tight yesterday at COTA. That is for sure. We all had great days. The overall league standings looks like this with Pishat Motorsports still number one. I think he's been number one every race since Daytona because he won Daytona this year, and I don't think he's lost the points lead yet. He's having a great season, but his points lead's not very big by any means. He is currently only sitting 23 points ahead of Tim Irvin right now. Andrew Hollenbach is still inside the top five as well. He's sitting a little over 80, or actually 79 points back of Pishat Motorsports. Inside Uranus is currently sitting fourth, and then I would round out the top five. Andrew, welcome to the stream. Will you have a 600 preview? I will. We will be live streaming that on Thursday. Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I usually do it the day of the race, but the Indy 500 is on Sunday, plus I will be at Charlotte for the Coke 600. I'll be very busy that Sunday as it is, so I won't be able to live stream at all, likely those 3 days. I'll maybe try Saturday night at a hotel if the Wi-Fi is good enough, but no guarantees. Well, I'll probably use my hotspot. If I can get my hotspot to work, there might be one still on Friday because I'm taking the trip myself, so... There we go. Coming up quickly in the points. Yeah, Tyler, you're in sixth, close behind me, too. That is for sure. It is not over. Also, you can join. Go to the NASCAR app or go to the NASCAR app or website. Go to Fantasy. If you don't have a team already in another league, you can sign up with your email. Search for KRC League, KRC in all caps, League with a capital L, and you can join the league. It is free to join if you win the regular season championship, which, spoiler, you're probably not going to win the regular season championship if you haven't had a team scoring points at all this season. You can't, you can still win the... Essentially, if you win the regular season championship, you get 2 tickets to any NASCAR race if you're choosing outside of the Daytona 500 in 2022, but... there is another grand prize for the playoffs as well. So if you're like, well, I have no shot to win, why join? Well, you can practice the fantasy, practice playing the game so you get used to it these final 12 races before the playoffs, because when the playoffs start, we'll restart the contest all over again, and you'll have a chance to win there, and you'll have every clue of being able to get the job done and maybe win those tickets to any race of your choosing again next year. If you're under the age of 18, you have to have adult parental supervision or legal guardian of that matter that has to talk with me before I buy you guys the tickets. And I'll try to make it out to that race as well. I will do my best to do it. No guarantees, obviously, with the races that I'm going to this year, and then the races for next year that I'm slowly planning. I don't know what the schedule looks like next year, so I haven't really planned any races outside of Daytona that I'm going to. But there we go. Wait, there are 2 championships in fantasy. Yes, because the points reset when the playoffs start. You can only use 10 drivers, but at the end of the regular season, that's the overall standings there. Because even, there's an overall prize pool, too. If you have the most points of anybody playing fantasy, you get, I think, $10,000 or something, a $10,000 prize. So that's pretty big. And then, what else is there? I think it's $5,000 for second and $2,500 for third, something like that. So they pay through the top 3. But that's overall. I mean, there's over a couple 100,000 people in there. So if you win, you definitely deserve that money. But then it resets at the playoffs too. It's another $10,000 to win the playoff thing. And I believe in the playoffs, it's a little bit different because you have to pick 2 playoff drivers and 2 non-playoff drivers, and then 1 garage driver that could be either a playoff driver or a non-playoff. I believe that's how it is. That's how it has been the last couple of years. They might change it again this year, so it's a little bit different, but the scoring is the same. Essentially, the points are scored simply by driver points. If your driver, say, finishes first and wins both stages, he gets 60 points. You get 60 points on your fantasy team. So that's how it works. And then there's bonus points where you pick the top finisher that's in a Chevy, top Ford finisher, top Toyota finisher, your race win pick, and then manufacturer win, and team, so Joe Gibbs Racing, Hendrick, you pick that. Those are all worth bonus points. Very easy to play. Once you play 2 weeks, you'll easily get the hang of it. And again, it's free, so why not join? Like the hat, man. Yeah, thanks. Detroit Tigers. They are on a roll lately. You had to wear the hat today. NASCAR fan Larson, also welcome to the stream. I know you're the one kind of asking those questions. Tyler's going to be at the Indy 500. Awesome, man. Yeah, I'll be at the Coke 600. So looks like we're both going racing, but at 2 different racetracks, 2 very big races. Practice and qualifying at Charlotte next week. I'm excited. First time I'll see practice or qualifying at the racetrack since 2019, so that's cool. Like, share, and subscribe for more daily NASCAR content. We'll get into the NASCAR 05 live stream a little bit later here today. We'll go at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, so bottom of the hour, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are going to go racing NASCAR 2005 Chase for the Cup. I believe it's the 5th race of the Cup Series season there, and our Chase for 8 with Jimmy Johnson, trying to win him his first championship. Making it seem like he won 8 titles if we can win his first before he actually won his first in the 2004 season. Join for the playoffs and win. Well, join now so you don't forget by the time the playoffs start. Because, you might forget. And if you miss that first week of the playoffs, you're going to be behind probably over 100 points, maybe 200 points there. So, yeah, it's not join now before you forget. Again, the more the merrier. And you get practice time. You get to, actually play, again, leading up to it so you get used to, the bonus points and everything and how that works. So, there we go. Yeah, again, like, share, and subscribe. Had a lot of fun today. Pre-race for the NASCAR Fantasy Podcast will be Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we'll talk all things Coke 600 and Indy 500 going in. Mostly Coke 600 because it's NASCAR, but we have to talk about the Indy 500 as well. And again, I will be there at the racetrack this weekend, so if you see a tall guy wearing Ryan Blaney stuff, say hi. I will be more than willing to maybe talk a little bit of NASCAR with you. Say hi back. All nice things. So, again, thanks, everybody. I'll see you guys bottom of the hour for NASCAR 05.